Do you have?
No, it's just as is. No, as far as I know, we're live. So,
Okay.
hello, hello, and welcome to the Aureus Pressure Cast with our good friend, the stained glass Zealot, who has become an ardent student of Plotinus, and we are going to talk about Plotinus because it must be done. And any of you who have not read Plotinus are living in the darkness. As I think, am I right that I'm the one who recommended you to read him, or you probably heard it from lots of places? I know you read it.
Oh, you recommended him, let's say, about 2 years ago or something, and
Right.
I had no clue who he was. I had absolutely, like many people do actually. So,
Right.
like that's why I said I think he's an important thinker.
Yeah.
So we have to
Yeah.
talk about him.
Yeah. Very important religious, philosophical, Neoplatonist thinker. The most important, probably. I mean, he's the only one you
Yeah.
might say rivals Plato. Possibly is more important. Certainly, he's the more inspiring writer than Plato when it comes to religious topics. So this is what we wanted to discuss. And I must apologize. I'm on my phone. Stained glass tells me it sounds like
It's
hell.
nice. It's better. It's better now.
Is it
So
better? Okay. That's all right. And yeah, so that's what we're going to talk. We're not the ultimate scholars on Plotinus. We're just two guys, two jerks
yeah.
who've read him and have something to say about him, I guess. But that's good enough. That's good enough for you lot. And you had certain specific angles you wanted to approach in talking about him,
I have
right?
many topics. I
Okay.
To be honest, I've never talked about you directly on Plotinus, but
Mm.
so I'm interested in what are your main interests about him. Also come from an angle, so a more Christian angle, but I
Mm.
think I'm going to approach him in this stream from let's say like he's supposed to be approached from Neoplatonist, like how important he is. So
Yeah,
so
good idea.
yeah.
It's a good idea. So yeah, go ahead. If you had what's your first topic then that you wanted to like? Yeah, this is the
Yeah.
thing. It's like so between like let's say this outright from the beginning. You are more Christian than I am, and
Yeah, yeah,
your angle
but
is more.
I think that shouldn't hinder me from understanding Plotinus. Let's
Oh no
say
no.
no.
Oh no. He's beloved in the Christian canon, or generally. I mean, so there's some who would make a fuss about him, but he was like Neoplatonists were neatly inserted into Christian
I
theology, philosophy, and so forth. So we can't. Most would not complain, really. I mean, maybe some would. I don't know. But you did have some reticence. You were like, I remember at first when you read him, you were like, you were really influenced. And I'm not saying you weren't like upset that he was a pagan thinker, but you're like, you felt like, what did you? I remember you saying, I can't unread this now.
yeah,
Something like that.
but it was like there were many thoughts going through my head when I was reading him because it it's it's actually very strange because he let's say he opened me to Christianity more. So it's
Yeah.
like yeah, he felt like he's very close to Christian thought in a way compared to most modern philosophers that you read nowadays. So let's say one of the first things we can talk about that later, but I first want to talk a little bit about the history and how he relates to Plato, if that's fine for you.
Yeah. Good place to start. Excellent.
No. So
Yeah.
so like what do you think? How does he relate to Plato?
Me. What do I
Yeah.
think? Well, I mean, he was long after the fact, but I mean, he was
So
growing up he was growing up in the times when Christianity was around. But he went off to study in Egypt, and he sort of came back and
yeah.
he picked up from Plato. As who was the famous female Platonist again? What's her name? The one who was killed. Oh God.
Harpasia?
Yes,
Yeah.
it was she, I believe, who said that, and I believe this is truly what you have to say about him, that he was possibly a greater thinker than Plato, but because his works were expounding upon the originality of Plato, you still must give Plato the credit for being the sort of the bigger man or something. This is not her words, obviously, but to this effect. So, I mean, that's what people who read him are often very, I think, profoundly affected religiously and spiritually in a philosophical, in a rational philosophical way. Like almost, I can't think of anybody who's read him who turned around to me and said, "Oh, this is garbage. What am I wasting my time for?" Like,
No.
if people get off their ass and read it, it will affect them. I think,
Yeah, it's different than anything that's floating around nowadays, let's say. So it's
Yeah.
completely different. Like
Yeah.
nowadays, I had once a tweet like, why do people go to Hinduism, Buddhism, or whatever when you have like Plotinus, you know? Like
Yeah.
it's like straight in the Western tradition.
I
So
think Pierre Grimes says stuff like that a lot. Sort of like, yeah, there's no need to go for this Eastern esoteric when it's all really still there, and the Plato and all this stuff. I mean, we needn't touch on the Nietzscheans and those who try to reject all this, which is
yeah,
just silly. I mean, even they, if you are a true Nietzschean, should still look into this and at least read these authors before you discount them, because I don't think you'll find it so easy once you have read it. I mean, Plato
yeah.
or Nietzsche, I think, was a genius too, but I mean, this is something else entirely. But the
The,
question was, how does he relate to Plato? So he's sort of a student of Plato, you would say, further down the line.
so maybe I think how I see him, and maybe you agree on this, is that Plato. There's many angles to look at Plato, right? You can
Yeah.
look at through him to him through a lens of Plotinus, which I think is the only correct way. I think
Right.
this is the um this is what, or you can look at him at the postmodern way, that as the eternal questioner and never answering any question. Like there's no absolute truth. I think these are the two extremes, you know, like Plotinus saying there is absolute truth, there's objective truth, you can reach it if you think about, contemplate the realities that are around you. Then the postmodern approach, which is all about circularity and saying there's nothing, it's all inside your head, you know. It's like, which Plotinus also says, but complete like in a completely
Okay.
different
What
way.
is he? What do you remember? What he says that they would latch onto and get that out of? Do you remember? Like, not a direct quote, but roughly speaking,
Uh,
what does he
th- th-
say?
about being in all inside your head,
Yeah.
or what do you?
Yeah.
Yeah, that Plotinus believes in the macrocosm theory. I think so. It's like that your, let's say, your inner being, or like your inner thing is a reflection of the whole cosmos. So
Mhm.
So yeah,
Yeah.
it's all inside your head in a certain way, but
Well, right.
it's a reflection, you know, of the
Yeah.
greater reality.
But
So
to take that, which is both true and grand and
yeah,
excellent, and to make it into this limiting nihilist thing, which means, we're instead of it making us as grand as the universe, it makes the grand universe as small and petty as this person, as the
exactly.
postmodern
Yeah,
person.
yeah,
I
but
mean, it's just such
that's a great trick of all modern philosophy, you know. Like
oh,
most, like they change one small thing and it becomes garbage, you know. So
everything
yeah,
they
it's
want
very
everything to
subtle
be
what they
garbage.
do.
Oh, it's just crap. It's shite. But yes. But okay. So we're kind of jumping ahead. So how he relates to Plato? I just wanted to say. So how do we say it? Like Plato really, not only did he had his dialogues, and he's very deep in those classical times, and his way of expounding things, it often drifts then into the mathematical explanations, and it's all through talking to other people, and it sort of lays out things in a kind of engineering nuts and bolts kind of way, where Plotinus took these theories and really seemed to think about them in a, how can I say, spiritual philosophical set. Not that Plato wasn't doing that as well, but he expounded on them again with a kind of mathematical approach in
Yeah,
many ways.
I think
But
this is the main difference. For I think probably most people have read some Plotinus or some Plato. If you haven't, please do so, because it's it's literally the basis of our Western tradition. So
yeah,
uh, but Plato in essence talks in a very it's basically place of Plato, you know. People, Plato, Socrates goes and he asks questions, and it's like a dialogue. It's dialogue, it's structured in a dialogue, right?
yeah,
But Plotinus really writes on his own, and
yeah,
basically, maybe we should start also, we should say also that it's called the Ennead, his work,
yes, exactly,
because
yeah, yeah. So everybody, no matter what we say, we're just a couple of jerks. We might
yeah,
like get lost and warble along. We're not even like scholars on the subject. But anybody can pick up
absolutely,
this book and read it. I was
absolutely
inspired
not.
to read it. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely not. We're just going to be giving our opinion, and you can take it or leave it. But really, you should read this for yourself. And
yeah,
it's
that's the
great if
whole
you can,
point of this stream.
like
If you take one
you
way,
when you were setting out, you read Plato first, right? You went and read Plato, and then you read Plotinus, right?
exactly, yeah,
Yeah,
that's
and
true.
you really should do it in that order. Plato's a bit harder to get through, and there's lots to read. But you should try to do. I mean, you don't even necessarily have to do that, probably, but it would help. It does help to do that.
I find it
But
funny. To be honest, I found Plato easier than Plotinus, but maybe I'm wrong.
well, parts of some Plato is easy.
Depends,
Some is very
depends.
hard.
Don't jump into the Timaeus. Don't jump into Timaeus.
No, but the things if you his overall theories that Plotinus sort of lays out and his ideas, first of all, they seem so wildly original and crazy yet true, and just like saying things the way you've never heard or never imagined. And it not only it strikes you as both true and incredibly creative, and you just know you're dealing with a mind that's sort of often with the Greeks when you read Greek philosophy, this is the thing that I love is that you see them thinking in a way that you just never would. That seems beyond what you're able to do now. It's not that people can't think in wonderful directions today, but it is a different kind of thinking, and they were in some ways freer or something. I don't know. There was an incredible creativity, just a creativity and an observance, a really strict observance of the world and nature, and speculation on what they were seeing and doing that in a raw way that you can see where all this, the rest of the inspiration of Western civilization is really born out of it, out of that inquiry. But so Neoplatonists are basically, let's just to summarize the whole thing before we start, are like the students and the acolytes and the later versions of students of Plato down the line, that existed and thrived for a while. I mean, they still sort of exist. Like I call myself a Neoplatonist. What do you call it? Do you call yourself a Neoplatonist at all, or do you?
No. I'm a Christian, but I'm very influenced by Neoplatonism. I think it's essential to read
Well, you can call yourself a Christian Neoplatonist, I think, and or you wouldn't want to do that either.
No, not also. No.
Okay.
I think Christianity is just a little bit different, but that's things I'm thinking about right now.
Right,
so,
right.
But let's say I'm very heavily influenced by Neoplatonism, at least, yeah. So I would say like half a year ago I would call myself a Christian Neoplatonist, but less so. There's like differences, but
have you read Iamblichus yet? I still haven't found the time to read Iamblichus.
No, not yet.
He's supposed to be also like mind blowing in a whole different way, as well as Proclus.
Yeah, Proclus.
All these things have to be read as well. My mind was so blown after Plotinus. I thought, well, that's it. I'm done. I'm okay.
Maybe read the commentary on Timaeus by Proclus. That's what I have on my viewpoint right now. It's like a very thick book. Because Timaeus is like, for me, the summit of Plato's dialogues. So I don't know if you agree.
Well, yeah, but I mean, I think a lot of people get intimidated even by the names or the idea of reading these things. They either think, oh, I don't have time, or they think, oh, it's going to be such a drudgery to read. It's going to be so heavy and scholarly, and it can be in parts. Generally, it's accessible to anyone, though. And like
I find them quite joyful in a certain way.
It's a great joy. Yeah, you're sad when it's over, and it's like, is there more? Where can we find more documents? Scour the earth.
Yeah.
There's
a lot. There's a lot.
Yeah, there's a lot. But like, I remember when I first read Plato, even I was just a teenager, and I was like, I'm going to be Mr. Smart Guy and read the Plato. And then as soon as I was done, I was profoundly changed, and just like, oh my god, the world's totally different than I thought. Like,
it's
so it's not just like
see it. You cannot see it.
I have read books to be Mr. Smart Guy and Mr. Scholar, just because I should read this, and it was like fine, and maybe you feel a bit smarter, but it would not like changed, like where when you read something really profound like that. So yeah, that's a rough overview of Neoplatonists. I think I don't know how well we covered it, but anyways, that's what he was.
Maybe one thing I'll try to add. I think it was Proclus. Maybe I'm wrong, but for people who want to start to read Platonic dialogues, there's like a 12-step curriculum. It's called the Neoplatonic curriculum. I think of Proclus, but I might be mistaken. And it starts with Alcibiades 1, and it ends with the Parmenides as the 11th and the Timaeus as 12th. So it builds up, and it was the curriculum that Neoplatonist has to go through to like reach the level, right?
Yeah.
But these are all Platonic dialogues. So
yeah, and Parmenides was also a tremendous life-changing genius to read. Even fragments of what he said is also just, and each of them a unique thinker. I mean, Aristotle too. I'm not as far as I'm concerned, he was another Neoplatonist. He just went off in his own little direction. The Nietzscheans like to latch onto him and say he totally rejected all of Plato, but that's not the case. He was. They all went in their own directions. Everybody takes what Plato said and goes in their own direction, as life as I think they would agree you should do. This is the evolution of thinking and musing on the world and God's creation, as you might say.
No.
Right? As I would say too, but I mean, I come from a more pagan angle than you. I'm just not. I can never say even fully what I am, but you are more strictly Christian. So that's. I mean, it's great that
That's fine,
you.
dude.
Do you have trouble then with other Christians? Say when you recommend this, do they think, "Ooh, what's this
No,
pagan nonsense?" Or
to be
no, they're
honest,
okay.
no.
Not at all. That's good. That's good.
I think if they are hindered by it, it's like they don't understand where. No, I don't. I wouldn't like if they are angered by it. I say like you're missing out on something, right? Like you cannot cut off everything that's not Christian. Like it's not the way. That's more like I think it's really a more Protestant way of thinking. It's like everything that is not our own. It's like we cut it off. It's like it's not the way to
it is
go.
more.
It feeds. Like
Yeah.
I like Plotinus says, and I really take this approach. I think in extreme hierarchies, Plotinus says there's one. I remember the passage. He says, you start watching the material world, right?
Yep.
First you learn about the material world, and then you think, what are the principles behind this? And then you move up, and then let's say you just practice or study physical science, right? Or just like physics or whatever, or biology, like categorization of animals or whatever, and you move up towards, let's say, more a discursive reasoning, like dialoguing, whatever, like Plato did. Then you move up to, like, from duality or the dyad, you move up to, in a sense, unity, like in a certain way, and then ultimately you move towards the one. So it's a ladder, and if you cut off the lower steps, you cannot jump, like you cannot skip steps, right?
No,
you need to go through all the steps, and I think that's essential to get Plotinus. It's like all about hierarchy.
Okay, how would you describe quickly the one then? Do you have a handy description for that?
Yeah, that's well, Plotinus
People,
never.
a lot of people listening may not know any of this. Just we should try to summarize everything.
Maybe the one is in all, and all is in the one. So that's really vague description, but that's how it's. I think it should be understood. So the one is like, let's say the uniting principle of all of reality, and it's there's no multiplicity in the one. There's only one. It's all one together. Like, it's very difficult to talk about the one because it's such a high concept, and it encompasses so many things. But it's like you feel it in a certain way, right? There's like like it's difficult to say it, but like you must be there's a unity to reality. Let's say that's the one.
Yeah. Well, the Greeks were often it shows in their art. This is what I always fall back to, is that they had a great understanding of this is in their golden ratio that I always go on about, that everything, and science, mathematics, even more recently, again with the Mandelbrot fractals or whatever, has proven that things break down fractally in terms of an eternity. Things can grow and evolve eternally if we're talking about spirals of fractals. Mathematically and in real life. So the Greeks, in a Greek sculpture, for instance, they were always on about how beauty broke down into the smallest parts were all equal to the larger part. So that when you did a pose when they made a sculpture of an athlete or whatever, the way his one finger was positioned had to be calculated mathematically in relation to the arm and the entire body, and everything was related, and everything broke down along a perfect mathematical scheme in this way, and that all of life follow the scheme, which I think they're correct about. This relates to the whole, to the one, and the oneness of the whole, and everything being part of a larger thing, in this sense that we're all sort of breaking along fractally in this way. And because of this formula, this God's formula, it allows for an eternity of potential change, of things to evolve and change continually, right?
Yeah.
So
you have the world of being and becoming.
Right.
Stasis and motion.
Exactly right. So the one was a weird concept, which maybe we should have been better. I should have been sitting here on the phone. I can't pull up my laptop and read even Wikipedia would be handy right now. But as a concept, it's like everything is encompassed in the one. At the same time, the one is outside of everything. So it's not, and it does not need to obey its own rules in a way.
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
So it relates to emanation, right? like the emanationist theory. You probably know it. Emanation.
Yeah,
Do you
yeah.
know? Yeah, it's like I think the way to visualize it is like you have like the wine glasses next to each other, and the emanation is like the first wine glass. It's like it gives itself to all the wine glasses next to each other, and it creates like a waterfall. You know, it's like something gives life out of itself, not out of necessity, but it like gives energy or gives lives to other things without.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
that's like the hierarchy of everything, you know.
Hmm.
It's
Yeah,
participation theory ultimately.
yeah.
So
And so, in that sense, that it's not inconsequential that you have to wake up in the morning and comb your hair. It is, in a way, it does relate to the planets forming out in deep space and everything else.
exactly,
It just
exactly.
seems inconsequential. I think things get smaller, practically physically. I don't know what their theory was on that. I don't even know. Actually, I can't even think of what Plotinus had to say about atomism. And did he believe things got infinitely smaller and
I I
larger?
I,
I should know this. I don't even know that.
I think he is anti-atomism. I think he says all things divide infinitely. I might be wrong on this one,
Was there
although
was there a smaller, a final smallest particle thing? I can't remember.
I don't think so. No,
No.
I think
Okay.
I think he does write against materialism, but not like on atomism. I'm not sure anymore.
Yeah. Right.
But yeah,
Mostly he wasn't really concerned with like he was more concerned with, at least what I got out of it in the Aeneids, well, like in practical business of as any Platonist in life and how you should conduct your life and things like this, but also like, and morally speaking as well. But it was like an observance of life in regards to these principles of eternity that Plato laid out. And
exactly. Yeah,
yeah,
I think it's very important to see Plotinus, like to re-emphasize, to see Plotinus in line with Platonism and not as a kind of reactionary or a kind of inventor. He just was exploring the same ideas, and then like I find it
yeah.
so important to see him because once people say because Neoplatonism, the term itself was, I think, invented by 19th century Protestants who said like,
Was it? I
yeah,
didn't know.
yeah, yeah.
They just added neo to it, is it? They,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And they said they make a distinction between Neoplatonism and they say no, it's a complete reinvention. It's complete reinvention. You know, so
mm.
yeah,
Yeah, they were working off obvious principles and just like expounding on them as students, and that was the whole
yeah.
that was the beautiful thing about Greek philosophy. I know. So, as a Christian, do you have any trouble reconciling that? How they would have had these schools of philosophy, and they for generations, because like the Christians really kind of shut that down. They took it up again by injecting some of the thinking into their own, like monasteries. Education would have like sort of took it up again as well, but it would just, as long as they took the specifically pagan part out of it, because they would have been like Plotinus was a pagan. He would, although it's weird because he would talk about the gods, and
I
Plato
don't
too.
know,
Well,
but
they would often
it's
refer to the god. They would have an idea of like a god above all the others as well that they'd often talk about. So what do you think about that?
yeah, it's difficult, man. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, uh, let's say that's also one of the things I read it into Plotinus, but on like Plotinus tries heavily to avoid Christianity while it was out there, while it was living. So I don't know how heavily he was influenced by Christianity or how like in what direction it flowed, but um
I thought even, am I wrong that his parents were Christian or something like that, or he was?
it could be, it could be.
I think they might something like that. Or he was raised somehow with it, and then he went off
Well,
in a
he
different
went at
direction.
least to Alexandria, which was quite
Yeah.
important for Christianity those times, with Origin and other like later Alexandria was quite important for Christianity also, so I don't know.
It's like everything. Like everyone thinks one thing got totally destroyed, but it just. I mean, there was a loss and destruction. There's no denying it as well. But there was also things changed, and sort of like a lot of things were kept up and kept going. There was a risk of losing everything, and somehow saner heads prevail. Even like what we're going through now in the West.
Yeah.
It seems like there's a potential destruction and loss going on, but like hopefully somehow through it all, the core important ideas sur- survive and transmute. It's like anything that dies, it sort of changes. and is reborn, or the next generation takes over. So you have to go through a painful period or something.
Yeah,
I don't know.
yeah,
That's
it's
all I'm
true.
using. But
Yeah,
we've gone off your original. What were your topics? What were we meant to be
I
discussing
have
before we?
many topics.
Oh God, just throw them out there because we're just talking random whatever,
Yeah,
which is fine. But
I think like one of the main essays that is returning right now on the front of Plotinus is on the beautiful, like
right,
any at 1.6, I think that is. So yeah, and I don't know if you're very familiar with that one.
oh yeah. Well, I remember like a lot of quotes out of it.
Yeah, it's very famous. So like I can pick that one because it's like it's all about hierarchy again. So
mhm,
and about purification. So
mhm,
Plotinus has this theory about how, let's say, we are mixed with parts of the one, but also matter that's pulling us towards it. You know, it's like we're mixed with matter, and in a sense, we should be like a statue and cut away all the ugly parts to become a beautiful marble statue. So that's one of his
right,
expositions.
right. Yeah, as best we can. He knew
Uh,
it was impossible in that, but yeah, as best as you can. And then you were closer to the one, which is a very kind of I don't know. It sounds perennial and something the Hindus and that would relate to as well. Doing your best to be as holy as you can through your life. But he would, of course, have certain cyclical ideas about, you know, I don't know if he was truly a pagan of that era. Like he would have believed in what do you call it? Not regeneration. What's the word? Where you live again in another life.
Transmigration? No,
Or what? No,
no,
what's
reincarnation.
reincarnation?
Reincarnation.
Sorry, that's the one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So
that one.
some ideas like that, which relates to, and every cycle you go through, you try to get holier and holier until you sort of escape the cycle. But in
Yeah,
a Christian sense, that's Christians have the same idea, like avoiding matter and being don't be trapped. He was very much into yes, so you should be totally both pain and pleasure. You should be as much as you can kind of indifferent to, and
yeah.
that it's a sign of someone who's truly dwelling on the one and the higher a higher mind, to be as indifferent as possible to both those things
Yeah,
within reason.
exactly. And matter is evil, according to Plotinus.
Yeah,
It's very
yeah,
evil.
yeah. I don't know if I totally agree with how evil he says it is. I have my own ideas about that, of course, but I allow myself to disagree a little bit, even with Plato or with anybody. I will I will disagree now and then. But what do you think
It's
about
good
that?
to think.
What do you think about his ideas about matter being evil?
Yeah, it's let's say you always well at the top there's ultimate life, and at the bottom there's let's say the forces of chaos nibbling and eating away, and it's like the closer you go towards the top, the more being, the closer you come to true being, and not ultimate true being, but to the one, and according to Plotinus. And I think it makes sense, right? Like that there's always you can feel it in your life. There's like the forces at the end of reality. It's always, yeah, the evil at the end of the, and you should try to escape it, right? So
Yeah. Well, there was there's a two things I would say about that. It is true, and like whenever you give in to completely matter like materialist affairs, you will sort of fall into evil. And if you completely give in to lust
it's
for
all
money,
it's all
lust
a,
for sex, lust
yeah,
for food, and
yeah, exactly.
you refuse to work out and make your body beautiful and do the hard things. These are things everybody knows. Like it is a kind of a business of matter that drives you into the more animal like behavior, where it takes discipline and a higher mind to do better. And when you do better, you feel better, and you feel a clearer mind, and you feel happier and more in tune with the universe, let's say.
Yeah, exactly.
So
It's
that
all
seems to
about
be it.
purification. That
Yeah.
Plotinus.
But I do believe myself there was Greeks also had the concept of balance, which he would have known well, and balance and harmony, and that you have to apply this in all things at all times, and that we cannot fully escape this world of matter. And like I don't what's my view, how can I explain it? I don't like fully beat myself up over having to or having the odd gluttonous meal or whatever or anything like that. I just sort of, as long as you're balanced, as long as you're balanced in with awareness, and you keep the higher principles in mind and do your best.
Yeah,
Do
keep the
your
higher
best to.
principles in mind. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So, but like the Greek view would be a little bit harsher than people would, and in fact, I'm not sure how well it translates into the Christian view. Because he would be sort of, you'd be indifferent to pain and pleasure in a certain sense. I can't remember what he said in regards to like love, or he'd kind of advocate for letting go of almost everything in the material world and not being too hung up on hanging on to things in a lot of ways. But I don't know. It's actually been a while since I read the Aeneid.
Yeah.
I'm not saying something
I'm
wrong,
now
but
thinking
that's
about
what I
the
think.
the
Yeah, go on.
article that I threw it out in the open. You shared an article recently on physics.
Oh, right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I was thinking about that, how like the material world has less being, or might even be not real according to modern physics.
Modern.
I
Yeah.
haven't
Yeah.
gone too deeply into that route, but there's interesting stuff
Oh,
happening there.
let me think now. That yeah, what did they say in that? It sounded very Neoplatonic. It was sort of
Yeah,
it's the theoretical physics crowd, and they're saying that everything seemed like more in relation. Everything was in relation to everything else, and what was their
yeah,
angle again? It wasn't this nihilist. Therefore, nothing matters. But they were saying something. It was something silly. Their conclusion. No, it wasn't them. Sorry. It was like the Nietzscheans and others were leaping on it. Or who was leaping on it? Oh, geez, I can't even remember now. I remember I posted it as a complaint about some other crowd, whoever. I don't even remember now
yeah.
who or what. But they were
But it's
trying to apply.
interesting what is
They
going
were
there.
Yeah. It was
Yeah,
interesting that physics and science was literally just allowing themselves to go in this direction now. And I wonder, do they
they're
have any
becoming
awareness of?
Neoplatonist. Yeah, yeah. Go on, go on,
Well,
go
see,
on.
they wouldn't allow. They should be taught Neoplatonism from the start. They should all be living it and fully aware of it. And they should be in, as far as I'm concerned, they should have be in school, like taught in monastery-like schools, Platonic schools, and the sort of spiritual aspect should be entwined with all their physics, and they'd be doing much better and be much happier. And they should be like that from the start, because that's what they would have like from the times of Pythagoras and then all the rest of them. They would have been sort of, it'd always be tied up with a quasi-religious, because they were their culture back then. Everything was united. I've said this kind of thing a lot. Science was entwined with their ideas about spirituality. There was freedom within the religion to sort of explore any topic you liked, but everything was sort of, there was always a spiritual element and esoteric element as well, and that was not necessarily the scientific explanation, but it was the prism through which they viewed everything, and which through we all have to have an angle of morality from which we view and decide and even want to explore the world to begin with.
I don't know.
Okay.
They saw essence in true things. They
Yeah.
saw everything intertwined with religion, and I think, or however you would call it, like with philosophy. And now all is split. Philosophy. It's like one
Yeah.
department there, or it's like all split. All is split nowadays.
That's why philosophy really lags and is
Yeah,
almost forgotten about nowadays. I think because science and religion are completely divided, and when they shouldn't be, and when they
yeah.
have to see what's similar in each other. So many scientists, so many of the really really good scientists are religious. You notice this? Like so many, like a lot.
Mm.
And even what was it? Was it Max Planck? Who was it? One of the ones, one of the greatest. Um, that's not who it was. I'm not very good at remembering who
Yeah,
scientist
it's
was.
one of the physicists. How is it? If you'd stare, I don't know. I don't know what it was.
Well,
Yeah,
there was one. I remember the quote from one. All we can do is give these vague,
yeah, yeah.
partial quotes. But anyways, there was one who said he was investigating. It was investigating atoms and so forth, and he was like he
Yeah.
could see no reason for atoms to combine and create this world in the way it does, other than some sort of the mechanism of God, basically. That there was no reason for it that he could conceive, which is true if you think about it. Like it's like there's no, and you
Yeah,
can
it's true. Yeah.
the way I see it religiously, like I don't hold on to a specific notion of God. I don't think we can know what he's all about or what is going on, even the one. Like we can only
Yeah.
begin to dream and reach for it and speculate, but we'll never really get the true picture, I don't think. Our brains probably can't even begin to cope with it. So it's good for us to try, but I don't think we can't just say, oh well, I have the definition, I have the explanation, it's all sorted. I don't
Yeah,
think that will
because
ever
definitions
happen.
are on a lower level, right?
Yeah, right, that
That's
too. Yeah,
Plotinus says it, right? It's
yeah,
literally in his
right, right.
writings. Why you can't comprehend it through just reading about it. It's higher than that. So
Yeah, yeah,
just like beauty isn't the statue that you're seeing, it's something given from above that's somehow, like, I don't know, in the statue or emanates into the statue, but it's not in the statue itself because someone else could find that statue ugly, you know?
Yeah. See, that is a great Platonic principle, and
Yeah,
really think like it always comes back to beauty in a lot of ways and how important it
yeah.
is. And you think, well, beauty, well, how much does that really matter and all this? But
It's
then, like, it,
important. It's so important.
it is. It's a meaning. But for the reason that you can't describe it, like, what is the feeling of it? What does it mean when you feel something's beautiful? Like, you cannot. This is like the opening of the Republic. This is the dialogue, Socrates' dialogue. He's asking somebody or other. Somebody's asking him, like, what is beautiful? Why is this beautiful? And Socrates just keeps questioning him and saying, like, makes him realize he cannot describe what beauty is, why he thinks something's beautiful, and how one person can like something is more beautiful than another and be sure of it in any way. And like just the idea that it's this nebulous, strange, what you thought was like a given, understood, defined thing is actually not understood at all. And I can
Yeah.
see why it is important, and people need to think about it more in that way.
There's many ways to interpret beauty, but like one way I think about it, and maybe it's not completely Plotinian, but you have the structure of reality, right? The just the structure, the hierarchy structure of reality. And it's how do you want to move closer to the higher things? It's through beauty. The beauty is a pulling force that pulls you up in a certain way. It's like a kind of negation of your current state, and it pulls you up in a certain way. I don't know, you feel it. So
Yeah.
I don't know how you would describe it, but
Oh, I mean, I don't know. I don't even. It's important. I know it when I see it. It's
yeah,
generally more objective than people think. It's almost entirely discarded in the modern world. Like it's something that people think is either impractical or.
yeah. But
Uh,
that's maybe like one thing I've been thinking about. I've been struggling so hard to describe beauty in a certain way, right? It's
right.
it's 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 transcendental, right? It's one of the transcendental. So it escapes word in a certain way. If you say this is beauty, it's higher than that. You know, it's like it always escapes you in a certain way. And Plotinus also says that once you think you've discovered beauty, there's also always a higher beauty. You know,
Yeah.
and that's so
Yeah. Yeah.
beautiful. Like, yeah, it's
It's
yeah,
yeah.
I don't know,
It's,
and that's
and to have, sorry,
and
go on.
that
There.
and that flows back into reality, and then gives life to everything in a certain way. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Sorry for
And
interrupting.
I know, and he would think that the highest beauty you can find is even just in your own thoughts when you're sort of applying reason and dwelling on reason. You would say, right? Which is, people. That's not reason is another thing that's kind of not given the accolade that should in this
Do you
modern
think
world. And
it's
when
reason?
I
What
believe he
would be
said,
your
and at least in my translation, I remember him going on about reason quite a bit. That reason was the
ah
highest. No.
the modern translations are always so
Oh
bad,
well, I don't
man.
know. But I'm pretty sure that no, but I'm pretty sure that's more or less what he meant, and that was like a big philosophical concept for the Greeks for sure. That reason and
Well,
dwelling.
reason
Because
is very important, but wouldn't you say uniting yourself to the one? Like,
yeah, but that was his vehicle for doing it. I
yeah,
think was reason and dwelling on reason, and like that's why I think that's why we like his approach so much is that he's gives these reasonable he
yeah,
reasons
yeah,
out like a reasonable argument for God and spirituality, and like it's not just like believe this or else kind of thing. It's
yeah,
just
yeah,
like
yeah.
he
Of
thinks his
course,
way
of course.
all the way through it, and he like thinks through it like brutally. Like I believe he discards
But
ideas that are wrong, and he does his very best. But yeah, just
yeah,
dwelling on reason, I thought was the most beautiful thing. It's hard for us to
yeah.
conceive of,
I
but
To be honest,
that's
I
what.
really disagree with that.
Do you? Okay, why?
Yeah,
Why?
yeah.
I
This
don't.
this
I
is
don't agree. I
one
don't disagree. Go
because
on.
reason is a way to intellect, which is the nous or the
Yeah.
how would Plotinus call it? The diet.
The spiritual light of being, or what do they call it? The nous is like the
The three.
indefinable light of being or something like yeah, but the
Yeah,
intellect, yeah,
it's between the world soul and the one. You know, you have the three principles: the one, the nous, and the world soul. So,
yeah,
and the nous is direct intellect. So you observe the world, and it opens up to you. Like, for example, you perceive the higher beauties, and I think direct perception of things is higher than pure reason. You know, if you can see it or you can't see it. If you can't see beauty, how horrible the world must be, man. You know.
yeah, yeah. No,
So
but
and
So you don't think reason applies there at all? No, like it's
No, absolutely not. That's yeah.
yeah. So you do
Because they
disagree.
always translate it with reason, but reason is lower
Well,
than.
reason is not defining. Reason is not necessarily trying to capture it and put
Maybe
it
you
in a
have a
cage.
different definition.
Well,
So
reason was just thinking. Was just thinking. Really, it's just
yeah,
thinking. And thinking is
contemplation.
thinking logically.
Yeah,
Thinking
okay.
logically, searching for conclusions that made
Yeah,
sense. It doesn't mean capturing
yeah.
and putting something in a cage as much. Not to me, anyways. I really would. You'd like. It would be great to have done this and had the time to like skim through the Aeneids or certain
No,
chapters
no,
and
no.
read
It's
it again.
good. It's good.
I'm
It's
going
good.
off my memory of what he said, but I'm pretty sure that was up there for him was reason, and for all of them at that time would have been reason would have been important.
But reason is
Um,
very important
yeah, it would like
because the modern
the
world
ultimate thing.
denies reason. That's for
Yeah, this is
sure.
the thing that most people don't. That's another thing in the modern beauty and reason
Yeah.
these things would be important or just being lost,
Basically
and that you would have
everything, man. Basically everything.
to. Yeah, it's the most important thing. Like, but
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
what else can we say about that? I don't know. I'd have to gather my thoughts and have a better way to describe
No, no, no.
how I would interpret that. What reason means when he says that. But it's like, yeah, it's not a very modern thing to say at all. To say reason is the ultimate beauty is reasoning in your head and reasoning upon your reasoning and going up into greater, loftier heights of reasoning. Because it doesn't sound religious. It is sort of an doesn't sound religious, but it is applied religiously by Plotinus.
Yeah,
Believe
true.
it or not.
Plotinus.
Believe it or not.
But Plotinus is such a beautiful has such beautiful writing. It's
Mm.
yeah, it changed me profoundly.
And even that was nearly lost. I think it was only because it was gathered by Porphyry and published, wasn't it? Isn't that what happened after his death?
Uh
I think. Am I
how
wrong?
yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. But I know the order of Plotinus chronologically is different than how the book itself is ordered, because
Mm.
Porphyry ordered the book according to
Right.
the Ennead, so 6 times 9
Right.
tractates.
Right.
But I don't know. I don't know if it was published during his lifetime or not. So that's a good question. I
Mm.
probably think so. Must be. I don't know.
I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not sure. So what else? What else you got for topics there? We'll get through them.
That's
That
pretty
was good.
much the beginning. So
Okay.
that's yeah, the beginning of
Okay. Well,
the.
we may have to make it part two because I have more time, but I don't have all the time in the world. I'm in the car on my phone here, and I'll have to go in about. What time is it? Within 20 minutes, I'll have to go. So, anyways, we'll get as far as we can, and we
That's
can do it.
fine.
We
That's
can do it
fine.
again if
That's
we have to.
fine.
Yeah. Yeah. Go on. So, what's the next one?
That's fine. Well, I have two ideas. To gaze upon the divine, you have to become divine, and that's one of the great missions of Plotinus. Um, is to become divine, part of the
Right.
divine. So, and it's obvious, right? But I think this is one of the. You have to purify yourself, and you through purification, one can see the divine clearer and clearer. We have also talked about this a lot, but I think this is one of the key ideas of Plotinus. Like, it's kind of purification, moving close to the divine. Yes, okay.
And do you remember what he said? How to go about that? I don't. Was it just?
Yeah, it was something like that. I don't remember the exact quote. I just gathered all my thoughts. I think it was also on the Tractate of Beauty, but I'm
Hmm.
not sure. But
And
Christians have different it's divinization or theosis. We all have similar concepts, so which are not enough talked about. Because it's
or
very
what?
scandalous to the modern world. How you become a god, man? That's self worship. It's like
Yeah. Well, theosis. What's theosis again? I can't even remember what that means.
Well, it's
Theosis.
becoming just becoming part of God
Becoming
through
part of God.
through his energies in a certain way. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So that's a good Christian way of putting what I mean. The Greeks, in a sense, not all of them, not always. Maybe to them it would have been sacrilegious, but they would not shy away from the idea that maybe a certain type of man, could become like a demigod, let's say, and that's how they might have put it, which would be their version of the same thing, and that becoming as godlike as possible, and to be as godlike as possible would be to shirk, just like you would see with you would see that in that concept would be in priests. You would find that in the priestly class still somewhere hidden, maybe not as much anymore, but it should be, but more so I think even in say India, and that you get this concept of the holy man completely shunning the material world about him and sort of retreating in
It,
himself, like
it's
the guy that
it's
sits on
still
the hill and puts his arm in
yeah,
the air for 10 years until it withers or whatever,
yeah,
just like fuck you world. I'm
yeah.
I,
Who doesn't want to become a god, man?
mm,
you know?
yeah. But to be this concept of stepping outside of reality or being impartial to it, it was very Greek and Roman and an old world idea. It still exists here and there, still in like the certain root Christianity. Although the Christians did a weird kind of way about it. They do have that concept, but they wouldn't. I mean, obviously, they're totally against anything that would lead you towards suicide or anything, which is good. I mean, not
Yeah.
that the others would before that either. But I don't know. Their take on it, I'm not even sure how I would describe how different it was. But it's a very classical idea, anyways. And it's not even to be just not to be indifferent out of like any sort of hatred for it or anything, but to be above and beyond any of its tricks. And like, if you think of the world, if you think of your life as a series of events which happens to you almost out of your control, this is very Stoic now, and like a barrage of events that happens to you,
Mm.
and all you have is your reaction, your counter reaction to it. So supposedly, according to these holy thinkers, the more indifferent you are, the less attached you can be to whatever is happening, and above it, the more godlike you
Yeah.
are being.
You
Really, is
become
basically.
more, you encompass more, you become more part of reality. It's like I would say the less you are, let's say I always imagine it as a pyramid, you're a little pyramid, and it's like the pyramid is not fully filled in a certain way. You haven't reached your full potential, but the more you're filled, the more you come in closer alignment with the whole of reality, let's say. And
Yeah,
that's yeah.
yeah.
So
See, I have a personal disagreement with that in a certain sense, but maybe
okay,
I'm not fully understanding it either. In that I wouldn't I wouldn't be all for, say, the Buddhist monk who, like, it's cool. When you see those old Buddhist monks and they sit there until they self mummify, and they just sit there and sitting
dropped.
cross-legged until they're
Oh,
mummies. And well, did I drop out? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? No.
no, I think I dropped probably.
Oh, so you can hear me still, yeah?
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay, fair. What was I saying? So that's fine, but like, where would we be without somebody working hard in this material world and like invested in it and loving
Yeah.
it the way
Well,
Plotinus obviously was, writing these beautiful tractates for us? He worked hard in this world. He didn't just sit there and self mummify and do nothing and reject everything. So there's a counter to that, again, with balance and harmony. I think where you should love the
yeah.
world. You should love the
Well,
world, and go on.
well, I wrote in one of my articles, and maybe people might disagree or agree with me, but there's a little slight tendency of Plotinus to become Gnostic.
Hmm.
So a little bit. You probably know what Gnosticism is. It's like
Yeah, yeah,
focusing too much on the immaterial and not enough on the material, and you have to
yeah,
balance them in a certain way.
yeah,
And he tends a little bit too much to that, but nonetheless, he's awesome.
yeah.
But so
Like, we can't do him service just trying to covering his points as vaguely as we recall here. You really have to read him. If there's
yeah,
one thing I wanted to get out of this, and you too, I think, is that anybody who reads this should read him. I was originally inspired by that guy Raven Gatto. He was a great Hellenist, very smart guy. He passed away, and on Facebook he used to often post Plotinus quotes, and I would read them and be like, "My God, what is this?" Like,
yeah,
and
it's so strange.
more so,
Once you first,
than Plato or any of the others. You get a good quote from him, and it'll really hit you hard. Like, oh my God, I got to read that. I think him and Parmenides had some of the best little like quote paragraphs. That'll just be like, amazing.
yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
It changed me a lot. Plotinus. Like I'm also reading. Like I was also reading Dionysius at the same time, the Areopagite. So
All right. And what's
it's
that like? I never read that.
it's interesting. It's all about uh let's say when you come from a material vision on the world with
All right.
which like 2 years ago you did an interview with me. I was an atheist who became Christian, let's say, right? And all is flat. There's just no hierarchy. It's all is the same in a certain way. It's like you don't have a goal. You don't like it's pure nihilism, let's say.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. So
but
that's what
what
that's what
yeah,
I don't understand. Say these forces in the world that work towards that, the nihilism of of equality, as you might say, where everything is supposedly equal when it's not, and but then it forces this kind of dissipation. Like, what is the point of that? That's just what the matter of the material world. That's what it wants, and it's to form chaos. And we need that friction of chaos to cut away the dead when it needs to sort of be reborn. Maybe that's the necessity of it, or whatever. But it seems like rejection of hierarchy is a principal force of chaos, as far as I mean, obviously it would be, because you get nothing works without hierarchy. And so if the Greek idea of beauty and the world encapsulated in the fractals of things spiraling in eternal evolution and change and rebirth, then that requires the hierarchy of the small to the big, at least. Like, again, with the Greek sculpture, the finger relating to the head and the whole body, like every part. The smaller part is not insignificant. It is equal in a sense to the larger part in its own universe, but it's got a place in a hierarchy that it must stay in. And if it kids itself that it's not in that, it's kind of jumping out into chaos, into nothing, the void or something.
Yeah. So
these are the bizarre forces at work in our cosmos that we can only faintly begin to grasp. In our Plato's cave, looking at the shadows, and I'm seeing the shadow over there and making my little postulations and based on what we've read. But that's all we can do. That's all we will be able to do. But it's not pointless. It's not pointless. But that's why earlier on we were saying, when science and religion got split up, and then philosophy just got lost, and there was nothing in between. Like, that's a
I truly think they should come together again. But it's coming. It's coming.
You think so?
I think so.
Like, way off.
No, I don't see it happening. It's quite close. It's quite close. I recently read a physicist that interpreted quantum physics through a Neoplatonist lens. So, a Neoplatonist / Christian lens, and it's really interesting. So, it's like he just puts it back into the hierarchy, and he says like all of physics. So basically, how I understood it is that the quantum particles of physics, like, something can be and can be not. That's just possibility before it has become something actual, So it's secondary. Possibility is also always secondary to something actual. So, for example, you have the possibility that you might wake up or you might not wake up, whatever, something.
Right.
But you don't know until it has become actualized. So we're just researching something between something that is and something that is not, like something. So it's actually very interesting, and it relates to perception as well. So how we interact with the world, but that's for another time. But it's returning. It's returning, man.
Well, philosophy would come out of some kind of approach that kept it, like, even I wish we had like a guild of thinkers like that, or like a school like that, or something like that. That if it was unified and everything, if you knew the approach, you knew the culture you were from, and the moral and historic approach you had to take by necessity of being the flesh and blood of that culture, you would. I think that would be the birthplace of a truer philosophy. It's like there's a few philosophers around. Like, who's a modern philosopher? Who would you call a modern philosopher? Like Jordan Peterson? Like, or who? Who is there one?
They don't.
Is there one worth talking about? That's even like,
I don't know.
The last ones I can think of are like Bertrand Russell or someone like, and he wasn't very good.
Scruton?
Either.
I think Scruton is.
Yeah, it's kind of a philosopher, I guess. I haven't actually read his books. Would you believe I have not read his books? I don't even know. I know what he says more or less, but
I've parts.
But I mean, he wouldn't. I don't know that he really would. Would he even call himself a philosopher? And would he have got into the nitty gritty of it to the level of even say Nietzsche or something? Yeah, did he? Yeah, okay. Well, I must read it and see what
he's quite classical in his approach. I think so.
Right.
I don't know. But that's one of the few. Yeah. Then you have all the existentialists or whatever, like Sartre and Camus and whatever. But that's also 50 years ago. But
even that, ages ago, and it sort of like ended with them. It seemed like, but I mean, that's where we are. People don't even. You can't get. Back in Socrates' day, he was a big megastar, and the city would pay him to go around talking to people and just philosophizing and asking questions. Imagine that happening now. I mean, we try to you find certain characters maybe on the internet. The internet is interesting this way in that it's both the plus and negative towards and away from this, in that there's a lot of crap and a lot of people doing dumb shit and wasting everyone's time. And there are some smart people, not just smart, but creative people coming up with notions, speculating on the world, observing the world. And, things are changing rapidly in this way. And human life and human thought is changing in this internet thing as well, which I'm sure the classic thinkers would have found fascinating, as sort of degenerated and hopeless as it is at the same time. There is in it an evolution occurring, and not all of it's bad. I mean, look what we're doing, at least, and others, many others.
It's possible through technology. I
exactly.
would never have learned all this stuff through technology. So
like you're off in some other country. I'm not even, we don't, So, and everything we're saying is, and everything that everybody says, and any profound thoughts that are out there that's circulated around, like, a lot of people are more inclined to hear them, although they appear in snippets.
Yeah.
So that's kind of weird too. I'm not sure. Yeah. So I don't know how much is really gleaned or how much it improves, or. But
my prediction is that Plotinus will, if he's not already, he's coming back. He's returning.
Well, like I said, I never heard of anybody who read him and didn't and said to me, "Oh, that was crap, like terrible." I never once heard anything like that. And so we should make some of these Nietzscheans read it and see what they say, see if it changes their mind. Or some of them will just do it just to be jerks and say they hate it, but a lot of them will not, probably. Yeah. And I always remember, I think I said to you before, I've said this lots, but that Terence McKenna, I love the Terence McKenna. When he was dying, one of his last interviews, he said, he mentioned Plotinus, and he said if anybody ever figured it out, it was Plotinus. So he had read him too, and he always kept him in his mind, and he had a good, like, esoteric knowledge, classical reading, history, better than us. For all his drugs, he had a great memory for everything he read.
Plotinus is all about stability. It's all about how to create stability. Which is very important. And all the modern philosophy, lots of modern philosophy is about pure chaos. It's all about circularity, self-referentiality. You see it in the arts, but Plotinus is strict.
They just want to talk about atheism.
What?
Or they just want to talk about atheism. A lot of the modern philosophers, if you hear about.
I don't bother, man.
No. I used to years ago. I considered myself an atheist. I don't know if you ever did. I did for a while. Because of some of those guys. Yeah, all those guys. I remember liking the Hitchens guy and his debates, and be like, "Oh, look at him! He smacked him down." And
me too.
I cringe now. If I ever saw any of that, I'd be like, "Oh my god!"
To be honest, I chatted with you 2 years ago, and I had no clue what you were talking about at the end of the conversation, because I had, like, my let's say, my beauty awakening through many of the beautiful buildings, and then, like, I never understood what you were talking about at the end, but now it's like I'm fully with you at this point.
So you just pretended to understand. Is that it?
No, because the microphone cut off at the moment, like when I couldn't understand anymore.
Oh, right.
You remember when?
Well, I don't really, but I remember talking to you. I don't remember the details. It was too long.
It was all at the end. So.
All right.
No, I'm a lot more solid in the things.
Yeah. Well, we got to get more of this. We should, I'd love to have like a Neoplatonist, Plotinus discussion group, and have a whole bunch of people giving ideas and talking about it, and people that are smarter than you and me, that are
of course
more. You hear some people talk, like that Arval guy is pretty good. He's he can pull. He's really packed it into his brain, and he can pull it out and index and give you a proper quote and this and that. There's a lot of guys like that who have, or even obviously the great scholars of modern times. P.R. Grimes. Actually, I would consider him a philosopher in his way, with his what does he call it? His philosophical midwifery or something. But he's all about this. He's all about this. The same thing we're talking about, where this is the Western tradition. This is the Western esoteric tradition, and it's even better than you don't need to go to the East and pull everything out of what they're doing. This is even better fleshed out, and it's all laid out for you, and it makes sense to a modern man if you read it. And
It's hidden for many people. But
Well, just because they don't read it. Like I didn't even. It took me a while before I actually picked up and read it. It was like I said, that Raven Gatto guy kept quoting from it, and until I thought, okay, I got to read this. So, all these names, these Greek names, people are just like I think they think it's too formidable. They don't want to get involved. I don't know what, but you've got to read it, and everyone should be made to read it. We should maybe I'll form a club or something, and if you join it, you have to read these books, and then I'll give them little rewards or some kind. Rewards
Yes, you read one and yet.
Yeah. There's got to be a
One
way.
step closer to the divine.
Discussion group or something, yeah. But then at the same time, are we really scholarly enough to lead such a thing? There's people out there that are more devoted and better probably at. We can only give our opinion. This is all we're doing here is just giving our opinions as we recall on it.
Yeah, that's true.
Whatever else. But what's another point you got and then we'll probably wrap it up.
I think I've talked most about this. We should do this again, maybe on a Platonic dialogue or something like
that's a good idea. And then we'll actually read. We'll pick a dialogue and we'll actually read it ourselves and be better prepared to actually really draw what we think out of it and the importance of it. Yeah, that's a good idea. I think
it was fine for a good introduction. Like I don't think you've talked about Plotinus on your channel. Maybe you might.
I've mentioned him a lot. But no, not directly and exclusively. No. So this is the first attempt at doing that, and we can do it better again. We're both very busy and we're on the fly, but no, it's a good start. You've got the juices flowing. It was a great idea, and yes, we will do it again, and we'll expand it. Well, I like the idea of picking up.
We're talking about this for months.
Try to just organize a day
since August or something.
Yeah, and even then, it only happened at the last minute. I'm sitting in my car and we barely pulled it together. So, no, we will. Yeah, no, because it's good. It's worthwhile. We should for you and me just to talk about it is good for ourselves. And any whatever few strangers happen by and think, oh yeah, I will read that. I mean, then we've done some good, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So I'm gonna go.
We've given some vague overview of all the topics in Plotinus. I think we've covered most of the important things, like for example, emanation, like the nous, the world soul, the hierarchical thinking. I think that's most of the important stuff, I would say.
But we cannot explain it the way he does. We cannot give you. We cannot really do it justice at all. So just take our word for it. You got to read it.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, stained glass.
All right.
We'll do it again as soon as we can. We'll organize something. I'm going to go for now. And thanks for coming on.
Thanks to you, man.
Yeah, no problem. It was your idea. Good idea. Excellent idea.
Always nice.
Thanks. Okay, and thanks to everybody whoever listens to this, read Plotinus. And we'll be on again soon. Goodbye.